I wanted to take a minute today at the beginning of the podcast and say thank you to our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. Huber has actually been a sponsor of the podcast since 2020 when we decided to start this little endeavor. Without our sponsors, this content is probably not something that happens. But I think the best part about having Huber as a partner on this is it's an incredibly authentic alignment. Peter, Steve, and I all use Huber Woods. I've been using Advantech Subfloor for coming on probably 21 years now. I've been using Zip System and Zip System with the insulation on the back, the Zip R, since 2013. It's a system that I believe in. That systems approach where things play well together. They have design parameters that allow you to use their system for what you're working on. It works. Their tech support's there. Their knowledge is there. I've never had an issue with their product, and it's a great thing that they've decided to sponsor the podcast. So thank you, Huber Engineered Woods.
Hey, Unbuild the Podcast, the SD Basic Architect here. Before we get off on a very exciting podcast, let's take a minute or two to talk about one of our sponsors. Yeah, Diamond Coat Siding. If you go to diamondcoatsiding.com, you'll see all of the different sidings they have available, a whole bunch of different colors you can see here, and a bunch of natural wood textures here. Yeah, this comes in a non-repeating wood grain texture. We used it on a recent project. I actually really, really like it because from literally a couple feet away, you cannot tell that it isn't real wood. It's just absolutely beautiful. But not only that, but we have different color variations. You can see, I think we use the iron ash out at our project here. But if you're looking for that feel of real wood, yeah, head over to Diamond Coat Siding, check them out, give them a look through. We married this up with a few of their other sidings and different colors out on that project. And the most important thing, clients are happy as can be. So yeah, go check it out. diamondcoatsiding.com. Hey, Unbuilded Podcast. Yes, the Basic Architect here with Jake.
Yep.
Pete.
Here.
You are going to love this because today we are going to talk about where I'll tell you where to stick that opinion. Yeah.
You can tell it when Steve picks the titles.
I like this one. This is.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
I can't wait. It's a good start. So in our last podcast, we talked about a bunch of things, and then I kind of ended it with this idea and said, yeah, we're kind of already at the end of this podcast. Let's save that for another podcast. So to reiterate, in the building industry, we have people that build stuff. We have people that design stuff. We have people that make stuff. And we also have this group of people that, let's say, consult, gather data, information, modeling, all of that stuff. Like, yeah, they're the enemy of the other three of us.
Point at Pete for those of you listening.
And then, of course, we have people that utilize what all of us do. So there's basically those 5 gears, if you will, are churning. And I'm not quite convinced all 5 really understand what, or any one of the 5 really understand what the other 4 are doing.
Hey.
Not in a sense that it's wrong but there's a lot of things. Like you hear people, builders, yeah, I just throw those drawings in the trash because they're useless. I hear architects, talking about, they don't like go out there and there's mistakes everywhere or whatever. The material manufacturers, so they're just, we'll leave it at, they got a lot to understand in whatever they're doing. But the energy consultants are the ones that the title, when you came up with it, I think really, because
I knew we were going to poo-poo on a specific group.
Well, I think they're the ones that, because it gets highlighted. I think the information is very important. Somebody should do it. Somebody should test. Somebody should monitor. Somebody should relate that data somebody should question things. I mean, we do it in the designer group, and you do it as in the building group. But there's a lot of times where they question stuff, and like I'll just kind of turn around like I'm not paying attention, because I'm not. And it's because what they have to say, really, I don't believe that it carries the level of importance that they seem to think about it. Probably my very first example of this was the very first passive house I did. And this was probably like the third or fourth one in the country.
So this is like 2009?
This is 2009.
Is this the one on the vineyard?
Yeah.
Okay.
And every time I met with the passive house consultant and the builder, passive house consultant, well, I was checking those numbers. We need to add 2 more inches of insulation to the foundation. And then we got up to like 8 inches. And I was like, is there something we can do? And this is passive house of old, so we wouldn't have these requirements anymore. And I said, I can't go to a builder, and there's no successful way to mechanically fasten 8 inches of insulation to the outside of a building easily. And I'm like, we have to come up with something else. And part of it was I was in disbelief, because every time we met, he seemed to add 2 more inches. Like 2 inches was good, then it had to be 4, then it had to be 6, then it had to be 8. It's like, you know what the hell you're doing? Like, because I'm kind of confused. How did we get here? Right. And the last podcast, we talked about over insulating windows. And yeah, if I take that window frame and I run it through therm and all this, it's going to give me these glowing issues that I have. But those issues are the last 1% of the issues that this house has. So why should I be giving all of this effort? And it's like, yeah. So you know what you can do with your opinion about over insulating window frames? I'll tell you where to stick it if you ask me. But since you're laughing, I'm going to throw it to you guys. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm laughing because you described gears, right? And I love that, because I've seen your use of gears, how like the window performance connected to HVAC performance. And I think one of the problems is that if all the people who have responsibility for the final product, which is a building, see their expertise as separate, that's an inherent problem. Your example of the 2009 passive house consultant, he's working off of a spreadsheet and a system that, first of all, came from Europe, right, to be applied to North America. That section of Europe has 1 or maybe 2 climate zones. We've got 7 or 8.
And 8 inches of foam on the outside of a foundation is what everybody does.
And there's a big controversy scientifically about, well, how much do you connect, ground couple for the advantages of being connected to the, infinite sink of the earth, or how much do you want to decouple from that? Right. That's a pretty complicated topic. So I think that we do want people who have special understanding, but they can't see theirs as, well, I'm the most important one of these different folks. So my gear has to be the biggest, or my gear has to drive the others.
Yeah.
That's when we get into trouble.
I think in probably all cases, except for the homeowner, that the other 4 categories, they are all striving to be the knowledge sink, right? The builder, I've been doing this 30 years. Don't tell me what I need to do. Mm-hmm. The architect certainly is not going to let somebody tell them what to do, right? The energy consultant is going to be like, well, I have these 1,800 therm runs that I did here. So these are all the problems. Like, can we get a different kind of screw to attach the sheathing, right? And then the manufacturers, so we're not going to talk about them. But the other 3, they all want to be kind of in the fight for who's right.
Well, sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say that, when does he know that we did a podcast about him recently?
I don't remember.
You don't remember either?
Yeah.
We did a podcast about you. You should probably listen at some point. but it's pretty
I
glowing.
did listen.
actually.
He said bad things, and he also in the podcast said, "I can say this because Steve isn't going to listen to this."
I did listen.
He did. He did say that. But both of us said, you are a builder's architect. You go into the field and you see how people use or misuse your drawings or have perspective to add to yours, right? That's when the gears mesh.
Yeah.
And you go out of your way to make those gears mesh. There are a lot of architects, there are a lot of engineers that just say, wait a minute, I'm kind of driving this boat. I don't need to go see how it works on the job site. That's somebody else's issue. And that's what leads to a poorly.
You're talking about a team versus not a team. That's it. It's a very simple.
But they're not a
approach,
team.
right?
It's like, they're all kind of on their own set of rails.
No, but what he's saying is when you and I work together, we're a team.
Yes,
And we fire on the exact same path. We have the exact same goal. We speak the same language.
Yeah.
That's why it's easy for us to work together.
Yep.
And it's very difficult sometimes when I work with other architects because they don't see things the way that we think they should be done.
And don't think they're important.
That
or
causes headache.
airtightness doesn't matter or something of the like.
I also think it's interesting that you mentioned manufacturers. If I had to make like a string of gears, they're the first gear. They make products for us to use, right? And then at the other end are the people who use the building.
Yeah.
And those are the two most disconnected from the process, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have an energy consultant saying, do this, model this, and then it all gets thrown off kilter if that homeowner comes and opens the windows for the month of November.
And we know
Like it
that
cold.
the best manufacturers are the ones that don't see. I don't just make a product. I got to go out in the field and figure out how it works on
How
the
does
job
my
site.
product integrate with other products? Become part of the
respect
assembly.
for the process.
Or even further back, what product do I actually need to make
Yes.
Yeah.
to begin with?
And then I think there's a huge problem at the other end, which is, I was a builder for quite a while, and I never thought, like, what responsibility do I have for the way that they use this building? I'm done. As soon as the 1-year warranty's out, ollie in for, let's have a party. But they're going to be using that building for years. And if I don't know how it works, and a large part of my work is working with architects and builders that they're not very interested in how that system actually gets used.
Or they just don't understand, right? Like I can have a heated discussion with a modeler about do we over insulate window frames or not. The homeowner doesn't know the difference between a dual glaze and triple glaze window.
Yeah.
Never mind over insulating the frame. That's like a concept that's, out near Saturn somewhere that it's not even in the conversation. And it's so I think, and part of this is why we never seem to come to any real conclusions in the building industry, because everybody, like we say, I could post something and say, hey, you should never do an unvented crawl space. There's going to be somebody that slams it. Right? Oh, vented roofs. We can talk about vented roofs. There's going to be people that say you should never vent a roof.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and a lot of times
They
it's
catch
high
fire and they blow off.
and sometimes it's high profile people that are saying this stuff. And then there's people believing them. But you're never going to get, and I just say, listen, do whatever you want. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. I really don't give a crap what you do. All right.
So,
But see, you do. I mean,
Well, I do. I had a guy on Instagram make a comment that said, you should get out to a job site once in a while. Lexi saw that. Lexi saw before I did and texted me, and she says, obviously, this guy does not know who you are.
yeah,
So-
that's funny.
I like,
Is that a dad joke?
No, that is.
What was your daughter? That's what I thought it might be a
total
dad
anger joke.
I got a question, maybe not last year, but the year before, maybe 24 at one of the building science symposiums. Somebody was like, so what kind of energy modeling do you and Steve do on your buildings? And I said, we do it
Yeah, it's windy.
in real time at full scale.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a joke. Like we do. We have proof that the buildings that you and I have built together, I mean, we have 0 plus. We have a house that they drive their cars off of for a 10K or 10K system. We have close to net zero. We have very high comfort. Like we have buildings that we know work. without any actual energy modeling done by you or I on those buildings or a consultant on those buildings. But the product manufacturers have done energy modeling on their products to understand what's happening. The window manufacturer, like it's the building code has had that science going. It's not like we're just willy-nilly out here making it up as we go completely.
And we're going to get it down to the last 5 or 10% of questions that need to be asked before you need, I don't need the modeling to understand, should I do a double glazed window or a triple glazed window?
Yeah.
Or should I do continuous insulation on the outside?
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
During some of my earliest months of Building Science Corporation, I thought one of the coolest things was watching you and Coda design a house. And it was, you would say, okay, here's where we're going to start with the performance of the envelope. And then Coda would come back and say,
that was like AI before the days of AI.
It kind of was, because
Coda's
still better than AI.
But what I'm saying is that you each had an expertise, and you were looking for a common goal, which is what's the best way to build the envelope, given that we're going to need to condition it.
Right.
So it was a mechanical engineer and an architect going back and forth and making the two systems better together.
Right.
That's very, I was like, I've never seen that before. I've never seen an architect work with a mechanical engineer to get
because they're not in the same shop most of the time.
Right.
Well, and they didn't have a structure like Betsy and Joe created that was totally about, you're all really good at what you do, but you all need to, be working on the same elephant that you're
And it would
building.
be interesting, to walk into a residential architecture firm and say, okay, y'all, I have one simple question for you. Are the windows part of the HVAC system? And it would be interesting to hear what their answers are.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't think they really know.
So to me, the most important distinction would be one who says absolutely not, and one who goes, I never thought of that. That's who you're looking for, is somebody saying, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I do want to say this about modeling, because here's the way I really think it should work. And I've heard you tell this story, so you can jump in anytime you want. The person who did the most energy modeling on any home that you've ever built decided that he was not going to put the PV system on until he saw how the house actually performed compared to the model.
He lived in it for 18 months. Yeah. He lived in the house for 18 months.
That's the way we should use modeling.
Because he didn't trust. He was a professional engineer, retired, 38 years of service from GE.
Yep.
As a mechanical engineer. When we did his passive house, he didn't trust other people. He took the passive house class and became his own passive house consultant because he didn't trust it. And he said, I just don't trust any of these PV.
And the really neat thing about this is he was the owner and occupant of the house. That's connecting the last wheel. Because he was saying, I don't know how many panels to put on it, because regardless what the modeling tells me, how are we going to use the home? Right. That's the final part of how does it work?
Never understand.
Yeah. So that's what's cool about this string of.
We've talked about it. I still haven't done it. I need to. I want to take a set of plans and give them to 10 different people to model and then see what the results say. Because I would guarantee, like most things, you're going to have 2 or 3 that are here.
Yeah.
You're going to have 4 or 5 in the middle and 2 or 3 that are way over here. And these two, the disparity is going to be pretty huge.
Yeah, because the model's complicated enough. There's a lot of hidden decisions.
Well, it's
what do I assume for air tightness?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. And it's that's why I would say, and what you bring up, when we work together, I think part of it is we can hire somebody and pay them thousands of dollars to run a modeling program. Or, we can just make the decision to add another R10 of insulation at the cost of $1,200, and we'll be beyond that kind of safety net or whatever.
I would say your statement about how far apart the models would be, that is driven home on the simplest of basis of look at what you get back on manual J's. Like that's supposed to be one of the most run, easy, like the installer can do that form and it still comes back garbage half the time.
Well, we need 2.5 tons. No, you don't. You need 5.6 tons. It's like for the same house.
The other thing that reminds me about our Pass Together Building Science Corporation was to hear Joe, who's an engineer, we don't need modeling for hygrothermal performance, and then the camp that said, this is absolutely what we need because this is the science and the math behind it. And then people like Chris Schumacher that sat in the middle that said, you know what? We need both. We especially need to make sure that a program like WFI, which is a hygrothermal modeling program, can be tested against what actually happens in the field.
Unfortunately, the modeling that I truly believe in is post-building and occupancy modeling. Did our intent get verified?
Yeah.
Right? Don't model something to tell me what to do. Model something and use the data, kind of like the solar panels with Dan.
This sounds like trust but verify.
Yeah, don't go there. I don't like that. That just doesn't compute for me.
Sounds like it.
But it's getting that information back. But the problem with that is if you find out that, yes, we have a moisture problem in our wall, that's probably not the time to find that out, right? But I think that is the most important information. Like when people say, oh, you can't do a 12-inch cellulose wall, but then Ben is putting these data loggers in Maine and saying,
on the north side of the building.
On the north side of the building, in 10 years in, we never have a problem. We've all heard you can't vent a roof less than a 3 and 12.
Yep.
We built a 1 and 12. You tested it.
I did.
In less than 30 seconds. It was venting.
Yep.
Right? So there's all these myths of you can't do this, you can't do that, but yet we have done a bunch of them.
Well, I guess if it's a tool that you can use, and for modeling, to me, when I was doing a lot of WFI modeling, it was never about one run. It was about a dozen runs, changing things to see if the changes made sense.
Right.
And the problem with that is it's way more expensive to the client. I could tell them, hey, look, this is my minimum charge because I'm not going to do one run for you and say, go ahead and.
But that's how you identify what I would call concerns.
Absolutely.
Right. And because if I veer this and the execution isn't quite as good there and they do this, like what if they don't get passive house air tightness and it's 1.5? What does that do?
Well, and to go back to Ben's example, we know that one of the big determinants of moisture problems in walls is in cold climates, what is the moisture content of the building on the inside? And when you do dew point calculations, you just pick one. And so if you pick one 25%, you're going to get a very different answer than if you pick 40% or 55%. So I'm wondering
and then you get the occupant that has a multi-generational home where their kids live with them and their parents, and they're cooking for 8 people 3 times a day in a 2,000 square foot house.
One of my first building investigations was a 10-year-old house built by a leading builder in that area of Vermont. And when we took the roof apart, there was just rot everywhere. And what sort of saved the builder was that a year and a half after he built the house, the owners attached a 800 plant greenhouse to the home in Vermont and left the doors open between the house and the greenhouse so that there
that's that nice warm moist air comes in. Man, it feels good in here.
Well, so there were extreme moisture problems there, but the relative humidity we didn't know what the relative humidity was in the winter because they were not measuring that at all. They were just like, well, everything seems okay and we like it this way. Yeah. But I suspect that they were probably running the average relative humidity in their house about 55%. Well, if you go to a psychometric table and you're looking at 30% compared to 55, it's non-linear. It's pretty steep when you get over that right-hand side. So interesting that it's not just how you build it, design it. It's how are people going to use that house over time? If somebody had said to them, hey, here are the typical household sources of moisture, and 3 plants equals 2 pints a day. Well, if you multiply 3 or divide it into 800 and you add that up, that's a crap ton of water that you're putting into your house.
Yeah.
So,
no,
God, do I love talking about moisture.
What's your mantra? Manage moisture and energy
With
equal modeling.
Equal importance. Equal importance. Equal importance, wasn't it?
Intensity. Come on. How many times have you heard that from me? You can't
At least
get it
1,000. Yeah, but it's more fun to say it wrong and hear your reaction than say it right and hear you say, yeah.
Cuts me to the quick.
So what's the solution?
I don't know. I think that's what makes it interesting. But you know what? Honestly, I don't think any of the parties want it solved, because the minute you solve it, now you can be wrong. Right?
Well, I'm okay with being wrong.
Right? Yeah,
I'm okay with him being wrong.
I tell people all the time, listen, I'm just, yeah, you've been doing it for 30 years, Mr. Builder. Fine. Can we just get through this and figure out what we want to do?
Does it.
I hate to have a kumbaya moment, but if you work as a team and you respect the other members of the team, good things happen. Yeah. I have a number of clients that have called me pretty deep into the design process, and they've watched too many YouTube videos about building science. And I said, look, I don't know if your team members respect each other. I don't know if they're going to respect me. So I have had some projects where the first time we sit down to go over the drawings, they don't want anything to do with me anymore. And so I said, you have a decision to make, because you're pretty far down the road, and I'm a disruptor. And if they see the disruption,
and you're a disruptor and this isn't on you, it's because we do it right, and other people do it cheap and wrong. Yeah. You are probably going to elevate the cost. Of what's happening. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Yeah. In almost every case, because they're building crap. Well, their benchmark is much lower than yours.
I have to admit that if somebody had come up to me when I was a builder and told me that I didn't know my butt from a hole in the ground, and they were right, that's still pretty painful to take. I never did
There's
have
no builder that's been doing it for 30 years that wants to be told he's wrong.
Right.
Right. And doesn't understand this.
And so I think that when I work on those kind of projects, I tell the client, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to find out pretty quickly whether you can't tolerate this level of disruption, or I tell you need to start over. You need to get a different architect.
I think I told you the story, but it was the only time in my career where I ceased to work with a builder, because he was arguing with me that we had to this was climate zone 5. It was a pretty high 5, nearing 6, Saratoga, New York.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's probably 6, but
this one wasn't though. Huh. But he was arguing that we needed to put poly on the ceiling, and I was like, it's a vented roof. And he's like, yeah, but we always put poly up there. I'm like, but it's a vented roof. Like, the whole purpose of a vented roof is moisture migrates, and it goes out through that little thing called a roof vent that you put in. Why do we need to insert a dam between the vent and the source? Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. Guys started dropping F-bombs on me, telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I literally Zoom call, talked to the homeowner and said, this is the last conversation I'm going to have with him. And I got off the Zoom call.
You didn't hand this client over to me, did you? And said, Peter can do some wolf modeling for you.
No, I did not do this one on that. But did
the house get built?
The house did get built. I mean, the homeowner went through like 3 builders before we got this guy. So there's some, it was some challenges.
Well, but to answer your question about what do we do about this, I mean, it's pretty clear that if you don't have cooperation among your key team members, the product will suffer.
When homeowners ask me, like, can you help us find a builder? Like, what should we be looking for? Somebody that listens before they talk, somebody that chooses not to read me their resume, other than, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years. I can tolerate that. But like, we just had one and we're not going to be working with them. where the guy's like, well, I did this and I live in a straw bale house and all of this. And he's just kind of reading me the riot act on why everything he did is the way things should be done. And it's like, you know what, buddy, there's probably more than one way to build a house successfully. And I'm up for it. I tell people, listen, I send out drawings. It's one solution. If you come at me and say, hey, we don't ever do that, we don't use that rain screen or that setup, we like to use this system, I don't have a problem with that. If the performance metrics meet the intent.
I'm having a little trouble reconciling the title of this with our conclusion that we need cooperation, because your title was, I'll tell you where to stick that opinion.
Well, maybe we got a little more kumbaya than what he planned on.
Well, you do. You always have to take it to this fireside chat where we hold hands, and I hate that. I'd rather jam somebody, you know.
I'm looking for the opportunity at an end of a podcast where we both stand up and we all hug each other. I have this image in my head. It's a bit of a nightmare, but that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, keep looking. That ain't happening.
As my granddaughter says, family hug, family hug. She loves to do family hugs. Come on, you love your granddaughter.
Yeah.
Daughters, plural.
Daughters.
Grandson.
Yep. So.
Is that our conclusion? Do we reach some level of we don't know what the consensus is other than teamwork?
I will say that there's a lot more commissioning that goes on with commercial buildings, and we should be doing more commissioning of residential buildings.
You know
we
what?
Shouldn't
though?
be so quick.
But who? So
we're not done.
No, we're not. Because I'm going to play
Billable hours,
devil's advocate. Who the hell pays for all this, right? All I ever hear is, "Oh, it costs so much money to build a house," and then what do? We want to go and hire 8 consultants, lighting consultant. We should do this modeling. We should do this. We should do that. Yeah, well, okay. Boom. 50 grand, 60 grand, 80 grand.
80 grand?
80 grand.
Put my hand up.
Right. So it's like you've just added all this, but it's like, I agree, but it's if you're going to do that, first of all, you have to give me information that I can use later. I'm going to go out on a tangent. I absolutely hate going to a presentation and people put up a frigging graph showing me everything that the data logger. No, don't put up a graph and tell me that that's the data logger. You're the damn professional. Put up what the data logger information is illustrating in your opinion. That's why I'm here, to get your opinion of what all of those lines mean. If you ask me to look at those lines, I'm going to fall asleep.
And he does.
And I do, because you bore me. And that's the God's honest truth.
Now we're back to the title.
Well, if you're going to, the one thing I can commend Ben on is when he does information, he shares it and uses it and talks about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that
Ben
just
Bogey, for those people that don't know Ben personally.
But there's a lot of people that just put up these graphs and it's like there's 18 lines, they cross over each other, and it's like, and they go through the slide in 60 seconds. It's like, how long did you work? Oh, we worked on that for like 6 months. Okay. And in 60 seconds, I'm supposed to interpret all of this work. No, you're wasting my time.
Fuzzy lines.
That's not a fuzzy line. That's a friggin' cliff. That's what that is. That's not a fuzzy line.
No, I meant fuzzy lines. That's. I think we need.
Do you want?
I think we need a
no, because I was going to say. Do you know where cow farts come from? I mean, obviously the cow, but it's derriere.
That's good. I like that one.
Because of the French connection with La House. Yeah, it's pretty good. Previous episode.
On that note, if you'd like to chime in on the topic or ask a question, questions at Unbuild It Podcast. And thank you for joining us today.
I feel feisty today.
I can tell.
Really?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm on edge. Maybe it was because I got up after a 2-hour nap and
for the feisty one and Pete the Disruptor. Until next time, have a good day.
Pete the Disruptor. I love that. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.